Was the moon landing fake? Or did the CIA actually assassinate John F. Kennedy? Or was 9/11 an inside job? People have spent decades arguing about those questions, writing books, making documentaries, starting internet fights with complete strangers. But the biggest plot twist? A reality TV star ended up running the most powerful country on Earth twice. How did that happen? Well, to answer that, we need to go back, way back, actually a little too far back. A long time ago, something happened. Nobody knows when or what. Everything was everywhere, but nothing was nowhere. Then something happened somewhere, which meant everything wasn't everywhere anymore, and nothing wasn't nowhere. So someone went somewhere, but everything was nowhere now, and nowhere was everywhere. Everywhere was somewhere. You must be thinking, what is this guy talking about? Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. Where were we? Oh yeah, America. Let's begin. It was 1945. World War II was finally over. America had won, decisively, loudly, with 2 atomic bombs just to make sure everyone got the message. The message was, don't mess with America. Everyone got the message, especially Japan, especially. Now normally, when you win a war, you go home, you celebrate, maybe take a vacation, maybe sleep for a week. America looked around at the destroyed world and thought, you know what this place needs? More America. So America stayed, in Europe, in Asia, in the Pacific, just everywhere. You're welcome, said America. Nobody asked, said everyone else. But there was one small problem. America wasn't the only country that had won, because while America was busy winning the war from the West, the Soviet Union was busy winning it from the East, and now both of them were standing in the middle of a destroyed world, looking at each other, like 2 roommates who just cleaned the house together, and now have to decide who owns the couch. This was going to become a problem, a very, very cold problem. The Soviet Union had a completely different idea about how the world should work. America said free markets, democracy, individual freedom. The Soviet Union said no. America said, excuse me? The Soviet Union said, we said no. And just like that, the Cold War began, which is a strange name because it wasn't cold, and technically it wasn't even a war, but it was definitely something. Both sides started building nuclear weapons, thousands of them, enough to destroy the Earth, then enough to destroy the Earth again, then enough to destroy the Earth a 3rd time, just in case the first 2 attempts somehow failed. At some point, someone should have said, guys, I think we have enough nuclear weapons. Nobody said that. Instead, they built more. This was called mutually assured destruction, which is a very fancy way of saying, if you blow us up, we'll blow you up. So neither of us blows anyone up, hopefully. Now, while politicians were threatening each other with nuclear annihilation, the Soviet Union decided to do something even more terrifying. They launched a metal ball into space. Seriously, that's all it was, a metal ball called Sputnik. In 1957, the Soviets launched it into orbit, and Sputnik didn't have weapons. It didn't attack anyone. It didn't do anything useful. It just floated around Earth, going beep, beep, beep. That's it, a flying alarm clock. And somehow, America completely lost its mind. Congress panicked, the military panicked, scientists panicked, parents panicked. Probably a few dogs panicked too. Every American looked up at the sky and thought, there's a Soviet thing up there, and we can't stop it. The beeping was psychological warfare. Not intentionally, but it worked. America could not handle the fact that the Soviets got to space first. So America did what America always does when it feels threatened. It spent an absolutely ridiculous amount of money. NASA was created. Science education exploded. Rocket programs appeared everywhere. And the entire country collectively decided, we're going to the moon. Not because we need to. Not because it makes financial sense. Not because anyone asked. We're going because the Soviets need to watch us do it. That was the space race. And honestly, it might be the most expensive argument in human history. The only problem was, getting to the moon is hard. Really hard. See, when President Kennedy announced that America was going to the moon, America had never actually sent a human being there before. In fact, America was still figuring out how not to blow up its own rockets. And sometimes, it didn't. On January 27, 1967, 3 astronauts climbed into Apollo 1. It was supposed to be a routine test. No launch, no countdown, no trip to space. Just a test. Then something went wrong. A spark, a fire. And within seconds, the entire capsule was burning. The astronauts never made it out. 3 men died before the rocket even left the ground. America was devastated. For a moment, everything stopped. People started asking difficult questions. Maybe this was too dangerous. Maybe going to the moon wasn't worth it. Maybe America should slow down. NASA listened carefully, thought about it, and then said, "Anyway, let's build another rocket." Because at this point, this wasn't just about science anymore. This wasn't even about the moon. This was about beating the Soviet Union. And nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to stop America. Not fire, not explosions, not gravity. Not the fact that space is basically trying to kill you every second you're up there. And then, Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon. And Armstrong said,
"It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
It was one of the greatest moments in human history.
The front landing gear of this LEM, there's two hemispheres, one showing.
The Soviet Union watched, said nothing, turned off the TV, and went to bed. America had won the space race. Now what? Seriously, now what? America went to the moon 6 more times. 6! By the 4th time, even Americans stopped watching. The astronauts were up there doing moon stuff, collecting rocks, driving a moon buggy, hitting a golf ball. Yes, an astronaut hit a golf ball on the moon. Alan Shepard looked at the entire universe around him, the infinite black void of space, Earth hanging in the distance like a tiny blue marble, and thought, I should hit a golf ball. And he did. This is America. So coming back to our first question, was the moon landing fake? Well, let's think about it. 400,000 people worked on the Apollo program. 400,000. Engineers, scientists, mathematicians, janitors. America would have needed all 400,000 of them to keep the secret. For 50 years. Not one person talked. Not one. Also, the Soviet Union, America's biggest enemy, the people who had every reason to expose the fake, they tracked the mission themselves. Their own equipment confirmed it, and they said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. The moon landing was real. Sorry, conspiracy theorists. But also, you're welcome for the golf ball. Now, while America was busy going to the moon, other things were also happening. Bad things. Very bad things. In 1960, a young, handsome, charming senator from Massachusetts became president. His name was John F. Kennedy. America loved him. His wife was elegant, his hair was perfect. He gave speeches that made people cry. He was basically America's first celebrity president. The whole world looked at JFK and thought, maybe America is going to be okay. Then on November 22, 1963, JFK was shot. In broad daylight, in front of hundreds of people, in Dallas, Texas. America stopped. The whole world stopped. People cried in the streets. World leaders sent condolences. Even the Soviet Union was shocked. A man named Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested. Case closed, said the government. Case closed, said nobody else. Because 2 days later, before Oswald could say anything, a random nightclub owner named Jack Ruby walked into a police station and shot Oswald in front of live television. America said, wait, a random nightclub owner just walked into a police station and shot the only witness? Just like that? The government said, yes. America said, that seems weird. The government said, it's fine. America said, are you sure? The government said, absolutely. And thus began 60 years of absolutely nobody believing the government. Which brings us to our second question. Did the CIA actually assassinate JFK? Officially, no. A government investigation called the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted alone. One man, one gun, case closed. Except, in 1979, another investigation said there was probably a conspiracy. In 2017, thousands of classified CIA documents about JFK were supposed to be released. They were not fully released. In 2023, more documents were supposed to be released. They were also not fully released. So did the CIA do it? Officially, no. But also, why are the documents still classified? It's been 60 years. JFK has been dead for 60 years. What exactly is in those documents that America is not ready to see? Nobody knows. The CIA knows, but the CIA is not telling, which is very normal behavior for people with nothing to hide. Very normal. Totally fine. Now, while all of this was happening, America was also fighting a war in Vietnam, which is in Southeast Asia, which is very far from America. Why was America fighting a war in Vietnam? Great question. See, America had a theory called the domino theory, which basically said that if one country becomes communist, the next country becomes communist, then the next, like dominoes. And America could not allow that. So when North Vietnam started trying to take over South Vietnam, America showed up, uninvited, with 500,000 soldiers. Now, America had the best trained military on Earth, the best weapons, the best equipment, fighter jets, helicopters, tanks, everything. North Vietnam had guerrilla fighters, tunnels, and absolutely nothing to lose. This was going to be a problem. See, fighting in Vietnamese jungles was nothing like fighting in Europe. There were no front lines, no clear enemy. Soldiers didn't know who was fighting them, or where they were coming from, or why a random bush was shooting at them. The bush was always shooting at them. America spent 10 years in Vietnam. 10 years! 58,000 American soldiers died. Millions of Vietnamese died. Billions of dollars were spent. And then in 1975, America just left, packed up, got on helicopters, and went home. The last images from Vietnam were American helicopters evacuating people from the roof of the US Embassy in Saigon. It was not a proud moment. North Vietnam took over the South. The domino fell anyway. Everything America was trying to prevent happened. After 10 years, 58,000 dead, and billions of dollars, the domino fell anyway. This is called a strategic victory. It is not called a strategic victory. But wait, it gets better. While America was losing a war in Vietnam, back home, everything was also on fire. Not literally. Well, actually, sometimes literally. See, the 1960s in America was a decade where everyone collectively lost their minds. Young people were protesting the Vietnam War in the streets, on college campuses, at the dinner table. Civil rights protesters were marching for basic human rights, getting arrested, getting attacked, getting fire hosed, for asking to be treated like human beings. Women were protesting for equal rights. Everyone was protesting everything. America was basically one giant protest. And in the middle of all of this chaos, the government's response was, "Have you considered going to Vietnam?" "No," said everyone. "We are sending you anyway," said the government. And they did, via something called the draft, which is a very polite word for, "We are legally forcing you to go to war." Young men would get a letter in the mail. "Congratulations. You have been selected to go to a jungle and get shot at by a bush. You're welcome." Some people burned their draft cards. Some people moved to Canada. Some people suddenly discovered they had bone spurs. One of those people later became president, twice. But that's a story for later. And do you know who was the president with those bone spurs? We'll find out in part 3. And also, was 9/11 an inside job? Like and subscribe so you don't miss part 3.